Rabbi, so welcome back to Yerushalmi Shabbos. We are holding Samach Aleph Amud Beis. Right, we're talking about other malachas we had in the Mishnah, V'hataychein, and one who grinds and sieves and kneads. Hahon, the shochat melach. Yeah, we're a few lines down on Samach Aleph Amud Beis. Hahon, the shochat melach. So one who grinds like thick, coarse salt, or chasaf, or he grinds like earthenware or pilpulin, or other peppers, chayv mishum teichein, is liable for the malach of grinding. Ahanda chosha gavsin, so he's sort of sieving bran, moitz, or other types of bran, choil or sand, offer, like thin earth. Chayv mishum raked is a malach of sieving, even though these things are not normally sieved. Ahanda gaval gir gavsin, by kneading together the bran or offer or colurian or other types of ointments which are made for eye healing. A malugma, or an oil, a cream which is put on a wound. A samamanin, various dyes and things for making a dye. Chayv mishum losh is liable for the malacha of kneading. Halosh, one who kneads a dough. A mekatef, or sort of smooths out the dough in water. The face of the dough. V'ha'irech, we put a form to the dough. Kulan mishum lash, they're all included in the malach of lash. Rabbi Baba Malabai, he has tamam. Now in Menachos we say, with the issue of making a flour offering from chometz, chayav ali shasa, ba'al arichasi, chayav on kneading it and preparing it, afios and baking it. All three things, you get lashes for each one and so. And here we're saying that the aricha, the preparing, is a tolda of lisha. So the losh, the kneading and the preparing, in one period of forgetfulness, you only have one chatas. So why is it making a mincha of chometz? There's a separate chiyuv on each stage. And the Tamar, the Gemara answers there with a mincha of chometz, yeshlai, there's a source in the Torah, lachlek, to divide between the various elements of kneading. So chayiv kolachas v'achas, you chayiv for each one. Bram hacha, but here making bread on Shabbos, eina chayiv ala achas, there's one chatas. But as far as Shabbos, there's no source to divide up the various different stages. Al-Chomi. Now, when it comes to baking, Al-Chomi, one can see. Afia told us the bishul. The bishul is the Al-Malacha, because they made the dyes, to give out the dyes. And baking was not done for the sake of the Mishkan, so it's only a tolda. But even so, Atama'achin. We're still saying in the Mishnah that baking is one of the obvious malachas. Eloi says begins at Tanina Seder Isa. The Mishnah is talking about the malachas to do with making bread. That's why it mentioned baking in the list. You're heating up lime from the mountains of Cardine to sort of melt it. Mashiach kilos, or you sort of melt oil which has become hard. Share zifus share mosrin, or you liquefy with heat like pitch or other types of hard things which are hard. You're chayav for bishul. Sort of making molten lead on Shabbos. Chayav mishum bevashel. You fry a food from tagain, or roast a food and fry a food. Shreilek, you cook it a bit. Ma'ashein, or sort of steam it. Al kula mishum bevashel. It's all bashel. Bishul chavi Tiberia. What's in cooking in the hot springs of Tiberia? Chizkiah ma'asu. He says asu. Yechla ma'muta. He says muta. Ramana. As I said Kisrin, I went to Kisrin. And Shmai, I heard it was reading Shem Chizkiah. The Chizkiah tzrichele. Chizkiah wasn't sure. He didn't definitely forbid it, but he forbade it out of doubt. Yeah. Now, Pesach is bashal b'chami Tiberia mahu. If you cook the carbon Pesach in the hot springs, what's the din? Now, how's this going about? So, I mean, here it's basically after you cooked it in Chami Tiberia, you went and roasted it. Yeah, okay. So the question is, how are you going to get it there? Pesach cooked is coming out of Yerushalmi. Pesach coming out of Yerushalmi is possible. So some say, when it says hot springs in Tiberia, it doesn't mean exactly in Tiberia. It means some other underground thermal water springs, but would have to be within the walls of Yerushalmi. Yeah? And some say, no, they brought the water from Tiberia to Yerushalmi, and it was still hot. You hear that? They brought the water from Tiberia to Yerushalmi, and it was still hot. That's what some want to say. Okay, Train Amorim. So we have two opinions. Chana one said also, Chana Musa, one says permitted. Mandava also, since the Pasuk makes no distinction, cooking is forbidden with all types of hot water, whether it's through fire or whether it's through something else. Mandava one says Musa, it says Kiyim Sli Eish, Rosh al Krav al Kirboy. The word Eish is to tell you about the Is of Bishul. That implies only with Bishul Ba'Eish, right? Or told over Eish, right? Now with Shabbos, Chamei Tiveria is not cooking from the Torah. But the Gemara says, not sure, maybe that might be B'Shabbos. It was learned from the Mishkan. In Mishkan they cooked with fire. But maybe Mevushal with Korban Pesach maybe includes Bishul Shalal De'Aish. On the other hand, you might say, look, Derech Bishul is on fire. So it's therefore it's not considered proper Bishul. Okay. Kol Elaine Shiuraya. Now all the malachas for share for chiyuv, im laichlin, if it's for food, for eating, you're carrying a food, k'goigris, a share of a dry date. In lebehema, an animal for eating, an animal eating, the amount that the kid goat would eat. In levashel for cooking, it's fuel to cook a small egg, an egg of a chicken, which is the easiest one to cook. Im le'eroig, if you're doing a malacha carrying to weave something, the share is gemlai rochav asit, which is the distance between the forefinger and the thumb when you distance them as much as you can. Kofel, and that's the share sort of kofel means sort of doubled. That's the share that's needed for weaving. And im litvais, if you did a malacha to sort of you spun wool or you carried it from one domain to the other to spin it, the share is gemlai rochav sit kofel, because that is the share which is needed for malacha spinning. Okay, our guys is a tzema, one who shares the wool. Now, to make threads, the share yochav rochav sit kaful. Gaza stam. If you just shared, but you didn't have intention why you did it. Ma was the din? How much do you have to share to be chayav? Nishmina min hadab. We learn for the following: YCD. If you carried ink to the street, if you carried it in like a quill, you didn't have intention. Why are you doing it? The amount of ink to write 2 letters. Im lahagia, if you're correcting ksav, even to correct 1 letter, because even 1 letter is chayav, right? So the same thing with our case. Sharing without kavanah, the chayav is the normal usage, which is for spinning. So the share is sit kofel, and the share that's needed for spinning. Taman taninan in b'chayres we've learned about the issue of sharing b'chay behema. Rabbi Yisben of Shulam said, if you slaughter b'chayr and you want to clear some hair from the area to do the shechita, you can move the hair on the neck to the side to make an area for the knife. But and you're even allowed to detach the hair. Don't move the hair, move comb from its place, just leave it entangled with the wool from either side. You're allowed to detach the hair, Lira is Mokem Mum to see, to show Chacham whether there's a blemish or not. Rabbi Ida B'Shem Rishlakish. Mizu, from this Mishnah we can learn, Ataylish Min HaKodshim Poto. If you detach hair from Kodshim, you're Poto, because it's not considered like shearing. Rabbi Yaakov Barach, Rabbi Shlakish Kedate, according to his view, there's Palgun, he had a Machlekes, Ataylish with Kodshim, if you detach hair from Kodshim. Rabbi Yechla B'Chaim, he says, you're liable. Shlakish Amar Poto. He says, no, it's not Geziza. Rav Yirmiyah boy, we have the contradiction view of Rosh Lakish from elsewhere. Because in a Raisu land, a Tailesh Knaf Ba'if, you detach a feather from a bird, the Hamota, and after you detach it, you sort of remove the other small feathers. The Hakoitzma, you cut the bottom of the stem there. Chaim Mishum Shalish, you have 3 malachas. Rosh Lakish, he says, Atailesh, detaching the feather, Chaim Mishum Goizes, is Macham shearing. Amata, Chaim Mishum Mamachik. Removing them is Macham Mamachik, smearing it out, leveling it out. Hakoitma, Chaim Mishum Makim Bepatish. And cutting it is Makim Bepatish. So you see, detaching the feather from a corner, from a wing of a bird, is like Ziza. And that goes against what we said before, that there's no chiyuv on detaching hair from kodshim. He said, there's no contradiction. They're not the same in the case of detaching feathers from a bird to removing hairs from the hem of kodshim. Because if like Giza, a bird doesn't have a normal shearing. You don't usually use a keli or anything. Therefore, we say Tli Shasa, he Gzizasa, removing the hairs, that is a Gziza. But Ramhacha, with an animal, when it's alive, you don't use it to pull the hair off with your hand, right? You shear it. So you're not liable till you shear it. I prove it to you. The time we learned Talash, if you detach hairs on Shabbos, mina mesa, chayev. An animal from a dead animal, you detach the hairs, you're liable. Because it's the derech to detach hairs from even with your hand from a dead animal. And detaching it, that is the shearing. So the same thing with a bird. It's the derech to pull these feathers with your hand, and that's considered giziza, that is considered shearing. Amalabonai, one who washes, whitens, you're rubbing wood in sulfur to make kalim, or you rub ropes with sulfur to make alika, which is a garment used in the bathhouse. Because rubbing with sulfur is whitening the wood and the ropes. Hada is the shaka apa, a woman who dyed her face to whiten it, the shaka ma'azla, or she was dyeing a thread for her to whiten it, sort of thing. You should chayiv because the melacha malabein. Yeah, he says here a woman who puts serek, sort of blush stuff on her face, is not severe. That's libun. That's the Gemara brings because our Gemara holds severe dyeing means chalok in various parts with a different dye. I don't know, but the whole item with one dye is not severe. It's more malabein. The Bavli doesn't hold a chiluk. The Bavli makes no chiluk if it's the whole item, part of an item. According to the Bavli, a woman who puts sarak, this sort of thing on her face, she's over because of severe. Yeah. Some say it's talking about where a woman coloured her face with a white dye, and that's why it's malabein. Because the purpose of the dye is to remove the natural colour of the face, and not to colour it with another colour. Okay, let's carry on. Ada is the shaka apa, so she dyed her face to whiten it. The shaka ma'azla, well, she dyed a thread to whiten it. She's chayav because of melacha malabein. Ahan chayata diyav chutza gapume. A tailor who put a thread in his mouth to whiten it is chayav malabein. Rav Kahayan, B'shem Rabbanan D'Gisrin. Hamiyantai, you put a garment made from amiantos, sort of asbestos or something. Chayav mishum malabein. That's also chayav because of melacha malabein. Hamanafsa is one who's menapates. Menapates is sort of carding the material, yeah? Ahandanaf sieve. You're carding, you're scraping, or you're hitting with a stick this material which is surrounding the bottom of the date palm. Hutzin, or the palm leaves. Gomer, or some other reed leaves. And they become like a piece of earth for wool. And you can start making threads from it. Chayim mishum menapes. It's chayim from the melacha of menapes, of carding. He says here, is a tolda. These are not usual teviyah. Okay. Hatzovai, one who dyes things. Matzavi ice of Mishkan. What dyeing was in the Mishkan? They would hit the animals with sticks in order to create an impression on their skin and to create this Amra. From this we learn that it's not considered dyeing. If you make a wound and the blood forms under the skin, you're chayav because of melachot severa. You put red on the lips. Chayav is chayav because of melachot severa. Right? He says here, Rashi also holds this. You make a wound. This is melachot severa. The Rav Yerushalmi will hold that we don't be mechayev the one who makes a wound because severa. It's the tinas neshama, right? It's taking life. And we're not mechayev the wounder because it's severa. Only in a case where its contention is that the skin will be so coloured through the blood which is formed. And then you're chayav for the dyeing that takes place. Okay. Ma'adem oidem b'safar is chayav. Hamotzi dam, chayim b'shum tis l'shama. You take life, you chayim tis l'shama, Shabbos makom in that place. Hatzad tzura, you make an image on a keli. Harishain, the first one, which makes the tzura, chayim b'shum kaisev, chayim lachos kaisev. V'hasheni, the one who colors it, chayim b'shum tzaveh, it's machom tzaveh. Chisa ba'eva, if the first one left one element of it which he didn't do, and someone else finished it, that's again the famous Yerushalmi Masechet. Squeezing water from a garment and washing. Malacha achas is one malacha, right? It's all one malacha. Malacha's libon. Even the one who squeezes it, his purpose is to clean the garment. He said, those who dye the clothes, Yerushalmi, they would consider squeezing a malach in its own right. They would get a craftsman to do these things in its own right. Right? Therefore, it's malach b'fnei atzma. According to Yerushalmi, there is, he holds chita as a separate malacha, so you end up with 40. So then the mission should say that according to Yerushalmi, there's 40 malachas. He said, we only want to mention that which everyone holds on. Right? But schita is not an av malach according to everyone. The one who's making like ropes. Mamzar, we use twine, threads together. Spinning. These malachas are like the spinning of threads. If you start making a sackcloth or something out of reeds, enough on a masalon or sieves or mats. That's the malacha mesech, which is preparing everything for the sake of weaving, and it's like mesech, which is preparing the shesi and the orev, the weft and the warp and the weft, in their process. Hada Esther, there was a woman who was on Shabbos, she was sewing, she was chayav for the malachas. When she pulls the thread of the shesi, remember the threads go two ways, one way and across. So when you pull it one way on the machine, that's malach mesech. Kadyava kadama, when she puts the two threads in their chains, in their loops of the base near, which is the heddles where they come through, then she's chaim shemaisa batin to make two batinir, to make two holes for the threads to come through. Kamekiva line, when she arranges the vessels for sewing and so on, straightens it and positions it, mishum baina, by putting that together as malach baina. Kadmachia, when she's weaving, so she's taking the thread of orev through the shesi and moving across. She's chayav mishum reges, that's weaving. Kadmekatia benimaya, when she's cutting the threads which are coming out to like level the whole edge, then if she goes mishum mechateches, that's malach mechatech. Kadgamra, when she finishes her job, and she straightens everything and beautifies it, then mishum makiv patish. You make boxes out of soft reeds or other bast of some kind. You over katsafa when you begin to tie the bast together around mishum mesech, machum mesech. Kan mechayet when you stitch the rows together mishum tofes, machum sewing. Kad kaf when you bend the rows upwards to make like the sides of the box. Mishum bainez, machum bainez. Kad mekata when you cut the extra material. Mishum mechatech, when you finish the job. Mishum makev patish. If you make beds from straps of wood, which is called milin, and you're over on the following malachas, when you leave the ritzua, it's like the oirach mishum mesech. If you do it the length of the bed, you're chayav mishum mesech. When you twist them with other straps, which are the roich up to the width, mishum oireg, malachim weaving. Kam kaltain, if you made dens or nets and things, mishum oiser batim, you're chayav for making these batim here. He says here, if the straps are not strong, it's not the same as a riga. It's like batinirin, which are made a bit loose. And creating these things is a told of making oiser batinirin. Kamekata, when you cut the material the extra material, Mishum Machate, because Malachim Machate according to the size. Gama Balachtai, and when you finish, Chayim Shemaki B'Patish, you're liable for that. Shnei Nirin B'Kaf Echad. So two of these heddles, these holes where the thread goes through, if it's B'Kaf Echad, like on one peg, or Shnei Chapin B'Nir Echad, or two pegs which are on one area, then Echad, then the same thing, you'll be chayav for doing this malacha. Ha'ereg Shnei Chutin, one who weaves two threads, Ha'petzer Shnei Chutin, you undo two threads, Ha'kosher B'Mati, you tie up a thread, you undo a thread. Mark Shirais Mishkan, what time was there? Shoyu Kosher and some Meisarim. They would tie the ropes on pegs which are fitting in the ground. Lola Shahaisa, but surely this was temporary. They would allow the ropes to take down the Mishkan whenever they needed to journey, and sometimes after a short journey. And the kesher which doesn't last is not considered a malacha. Because they were following what Hashem said, it's considered as if it's like a forever. Then the Gemara says, wait a minute, look, they knew they're not going to stay in the midbar. Is that working? Yeah. They knew they're not going to stay in the midbar. So therefore, because Hashem promised them he's taking them out, so you're going to tell me, as if it's forever? That can't be. They knew that they're not going to stay there forever. There was a promise that they're going to leave the midbar. They're going to Eretz Yisrael. So these knots wasn't Kesher Shal Kayama. So the question comes back, what Kesher Shal Kayama was there in the Mishkan? So the Gemara says, you know what? They learned it from those that stitched the Urias for the Mishkan. They learned the Chir Melechus Kosher Mate. Nifsak, if the time when it's cut, he would tie the two ends of the thread and carry on sewing, and that's the Makor from Melechus Kosher. Chazav and Nifsak, if the thread got cut again in an additional place, you can't start making knots and knots and knots. It's not derech covered, right? It should be seen. We don't want too many knots in this material, right? It doesn't look nice. So basically you undo the first knot, remove the middle thread between the two places which was cut, and you tie the top one to the next one to the bottom one. So that's the Makor from Lechus Mate. An expert tailor can hide the two ends of the thread which were torn within his stitches. You don't have to tie it at all, so you can hide it, right? And same thing, the craftsmen, they would do this when things got torn. They didn't need to retie it or undo it. But hide Amrada, where's the source for the Melechus Kosher? The Amrada is we learned it from those who put the Urias together with the ceilings for the Mishkan, right? That's where they learned Melechus Kosher, because they were required to tie a knot if this thing got ruined, if it got torn before sewing together. Mata, what's the source of this? The length of the Uriah, the Achas, the one is extra. Could have just said without Ha'achas. It's telling me Kadesha Kula, the whole thing should be like Achas, like one long one. So 28 Amas, Uriah Sasema Pishtan, and 30 Amas with the goats, and not that they should make big pieces. So basically they needed long threads, right? They didn't want to make big pieces and sew them together, so they needed long threads. So if one of the threads got torn, then they would tie it, and that's the Makor for the Melechus Kosher that is permitted. Okay, now the Makor for Melechus Mate. If at the end of the day you've come to the stage of Arig, then and it turns out that while you're weaving, the garment is in the middle of its stage. Yeah, and then the weaving would allow the knot after Ariga and put the head of the thread into the weaving, so it won't be knots in the middle of it, and that's Makor from Melechus Mate. Now the Gemara brings a proof to what we've said. If the knot is there in the middle of the rear, you would the oireg we would be matter it. Even the erev, the threads going one way, they had no connection, no other connection. They weren't so noticeable. And definitely the chutei hashesi, which are very noticeable, there was no knots or anything like that within them. If you have one basket which is woven from date palm, of dates, or patilaya, a basket which is woven from wickerwork leaves. Shel tamorim, if the lid is tied with a rope, kareah mati, tear it and untie it. Don't retie it again. Is this not hatara loosening which is forbidden on Shabbos? The Gemara says Naaser is treated like that which we've learned. Shover as a chavis, you can break the barrel loichem ben agrugos, so in order to eat a grogos from it. Yeah, oznaim shel diskia, and a handle of like sackcloth, which they open and close the sack. Kosher matter, you can open it and close it. It's like opening a door and closing a door on Shabbos. Rav Chanina said, now, tefira is not considered sewing unless you tighten the stitch, until you let the thread go all the way to the other side of the garment. So when you put a needle in a garment from one side to the other, you have to put it all the way along, right? So the sewing area will be muhudak, right? And without that, it's not considered connected. They said to Rav Chanina, Seilkra, go and learn the psukim, because you're not right. We learn if you move the thread to the other side and then you brought it back, then it's a connection. If that's the case, the Mishnah should have added that it's not considered chibur basically until yechos v'yisok. Basically, the thread should go all the way to the other side of the garment, yeah, and then come back to where it was, right? But the Mishnah was only particular that the two ends should be on one side, but it didn't require that you should bring the whole length of the thread all the way to the other side. But in here we also learn that according to Yehuda, it's not considered chibur until you move the needle like 3 times, like one in and one out and one additional one in. According to what you're saying, it's not chibur basically until the thread goes completely to the second side of the garment. But yisok, and let it all come back to the first side. But yachos, and then after that, the yachos. It should go again the length of the garment to the second side. I mean, all these things are extra. We don't mention this anywhere. This is what it is. It is what it is. So whether you put the thread all the way or each time or not, it's considered part of the garment. Okay. Yeah, we've got now another brisa. A thread which you put it through a needle. Even though it's tied on 2 edges, and you can't take it from the needle without cutting it, it's not a connection to the needle. So if the needle is tameh, the thread is not tameh. Right? If you tied the thread to a garment and it's still within a needle and you can't remove it without tearing it, it's considered tied to the garment. You can't remove it from the garment. But if, however, the thread is not tied together to the needle, because one second. Yeah, it's connection to the garment, but it's not connection to the needle. Now the Mishnah in Kilayim talks about we have Asa Shnei Shabbos Daf, which one shot is you took the needle in a garment 2 ways, one way going in and one way coming out. Yeah, and that's considered chibur. Rav Yonah, Rav Yosef, Amri, they both said bekisha mikan and mikan. We're talking about a case where you've tied the 2 threads together. Otherwise, it wouldn't last. Something putting it wouldn't last. The words of Chachamim argue on Rav Yonah, Rav Yosef. He said a garment which is tafel, which has been stitched, which is weakened, and some of the garments have fallen away. If you sort of pull the threads of the stitch to strengthen it, to tighten it, b'Shabbos, chayv b'shum tofer, you're chayv l'achal tofer. And if you're going to tell me it's not chibur until you actually tie the ends, then Naima, we should have said you only chayv b'shum tofer b'shum kosher. If you have to make a knot to be liable, then you should be chayv tofer and kosher as well. It must be, according to Rav, it's a chibur even if you don't make a knot. You hear that? We're saying if you have to make a knot to tighten it, you should be chayv too. So we said no. It's talking about where it could be your chayiv even if you don't take a knot. The truth is, you could say, yes, you have to make a knot, but you don't have to make a biblical knot. It could be a Rabbanan knot. Who says you're chayiv too? Maybe it's a rabbinical knot. Maybe it's a rabbinical one that's not made to last or something like that. Anyway, we come back to the malachas in the Mishnah, Korea. Right, Korea, tearing, which is in your hand, that is bibgadim with clothes, which are, you can tear them. Chituch is what you find wires with skins, which are harder. Korea is bibgadim, tearing is done with clothes, but emsa, in the middle of a garment, there's a hole in the middle of a garment, and you widen the hole. But chituch is done with skins. Min on one side, you cut the skins on its sides to sort of make it the right sizes. But here's the b'chavin, and some change it, and they say no. Sometimes you have kriya with skins, and chituch you have bibgadim with clothes. Kriya, you can have tearing virus with skins, but in rakichaya with the soft ones, like the soft skins where you can just tear them. And chituch is bibgadim with clothes, but ilen livdaya with the more felt clothes, yeah, which is harder, and that way you'll tear it while it's still hard. Okay. Hatzat chilazon of tzai. If you hunt the chilazon and you hit it and push it to the blood to come out, some say you're chayiv shtayim, you get two malachas. Some say you're chayiv alachas, you only chayiv one. Ma'adav shtayim, the one says you're chayiv two because he holds achas mishum tzad, one for trapping the fish, but achas mishum tzad shama, one for killing it. Ma'adav, the one who says you're only chayiv one, hayrohi, which of the two is you chayiv? The Gemara answers, according to this Tani, you're chayiv only mishum tzad neshama. It's only for taking the life of the thing, but less lat seidah. And you're not chad seder with the chalazon according to this Tana. Fine. According to the first Tana, that there's a chiyuv seder with the chilazon, the malach of hunting is learned from the fact that they had to hunt the chilazon, right, the fish, to get a dye to cheles or the binyan of Mishkan. According to the second Tana, it doesn't treat it as an act of seder. You can't learn their malachas seder from that. So what's the source to Malachas Seder if you can't learn from here? But Asya, if it's in, that what? That the skins of the tachash, which was made a covering on the Mishkan, this was a special tire animal that Hashem created just for them. Once it was used for the Mishkan, Nignazai was hidden away. So since it was the tachash was a chaya, it's shaykh Seder. And from here we learn the Melach of Seder. According to the opinion that Tachash was a behema, we can't learn Melach of Seder. He's not shaykh hunting with a behema. A domestic animal doesn't run away. So he's not shaykh hunting, right? Rav Avanama, he said, Keresh Hayashma. It was called Keresh, the Tachash, this unicorn or something, was called Keresh. So I don't know if I should learn. It had one horn. As it says in the Pasuk, Makrin is the one who has one horn. Now, where do you see Makrin is one horn? Makrin Kisid. It says Makrin without a Yud. And you can read it, Mi Keren. Right? To learn that there's one Keren, it had one horn. But Asya now fits in, Kaid Amr of Shmo Barev Shem Rabbo, Mutalas Alim Abem Tamel. You can make tents and things from the skin of a non-kosher animal. It's not Tamei Tumas Ayel. This oil made from skins is Tamei, it's not called an oil. And that fits in with Rameh, that the Tachash, they made this covering, the Mishkan was a Tahir min, Tahir of an animal. But according to those who say the Tachash was Tamei, then the oil made was from Tamei, was called oil. It covers the skin of the Tachash. From the Mishkan was made min tamei. Okay, it's still called oil. Ha shachata, yeah. One who slaughters an animal. He says, you know what? Don't mention shchita amongst the obvious malachas here, because shchita teledes chaborehi. He says, you know what? It comes from making a wound. So why was it mentioned in the list? And it begins at Taninan Seder Suda, because we're mentioning the meal. Tonight, same mind, we mentioned shchita with them as well, even though it's only told of chabura. How about Abdai, one who does tanning my b'doyim Mishkan? What tanning was in the Mishkan? Shemasastin b'ayos, they would scratch out the numbers and things in the skins, right? It's not a tannery, it's preparing skins for cutting. Okay. What were they scratching out on these skins? Masagli line. So they sort of what? They would rule out on them, draw lines. So it should be equal cuts with all the urea, so it would be easy to connect them together. Okay. What rubbing away was in the Mishkan? They would polish the skins of the Elim and the Tchashim al Gabe Amud on a pillar to smooth it. We've learned if you push the skin and you rub it on top of a pillar on Shabbos Chayev, you are liable. Why are you Chayev? Rabbi Yisrael ben Levi, Rabbi Achim ben Levi, Mishum Meichek. Of wearing away, rubbing out. That which you're saying that rubbing the skins on an Amud Yochai is only b'chodash. That's only with a skin which is new, it hasn't got full of cracks in it and so on, and needs smoothing out. But Yashad, an old one which has already been smoothed out from use, and you're just removing things stuck on it, then it depends. This is Ktalgud, because we find an argument. One who sweeps the floor, Marabet, put water to stop the dust rising. Hamagabein, one who makes the cheese. Hamachabet, you put milk in a keli menukav so that it will drip on it and it will stay in the keli, just bits of cheese. Hachaylev, you milk the animals. V'avroida chales dvash, you get the honey out of the beehive. If you do it on Shabbos, chayim chatas. Dibra b'lezer. Chacham said, you do any of these things, it's mishum shavus. Yeah, it's only rabbinical. Yeah, what's their argument? With Machabed and Merabet, Ruleza holds there's chatas because of mamachek. You're smoothing out the floor of the house. And the Chachamim holds there's no chiyuv mamachek unless just by smoothing out new skin, right? Which is full of lines and needs smoothing, but not with other things. So according to this, the nidon about smoothing out Yashon depends on this argument. According to Ruleza, smoothing out Yachayim Mishum mamachek. According to the Chachamim, there's no mamachek unless you're doing like a new skin. But likely, there's no argument over here, and everyone agrees there's no chim and machek even on the new skins, only on the new skins, not other skins. Now the argument is merabes, then pouring the water is because of other reasons. Quinta releza mechabed and sweeping, and merabes chayim mishum chayresh. It's malach of plowing, right? Because the water, it levels the ground, it levels holes. You're preparing the ground for sowing. And Chachamim say it's not a malach of chayresh. Now, because we mentioned machlekes kibbud and ribos, the Gemara explains the other machlekes in the brayta. Hamegabe, one who makes the cheese from machabes, the other makes this milky dish. The Why? Because when you make cheese, you gather it, and it becomes one clump. Yeah, and it's like kneading a flour. It makes one dough. And also machabes is like lush as well, because you're connecting all the various bits, yeah? And they join together. And the Chachamim held, it's not a problem of lush. The Machlek is about milking and Roda Chalas Tavash is because according to Beleza Chaylev, Roda Chalas Tavash, he holds that Chaylev, even milking or bringing out the honeycomb, is because of Kaitzer. Yeah, he's sort of reaping. But the Chachamim hold, no, it's not Malach of Kaitzer. Okay, I think we'll stop here, Rabbi Say.
Okay.